Yo, what's up, fam? It's Tommy here. The season premiere of Force is around the corner, so let me count down all the reasons that you need to tune in this season.
Hell yeah.
5, it's explosive, literally. 4, we got twists and turns, and yeah, some bodies hit the floor. 3, somebody's Christmas is definitely getting canceled. Don't say I didn't warn you. 2, it's power. We don't do basic. Surprises? Always.
You serious?
And number 1, come on, do I even need to say it? Tommy's back, baby!
Now we know episode 1 is right around the corner, and when we approach a new season, things do start to ramp up in terms of exclusives that tend to drop across social media. There's also interviews from the showrunner Gary Lennon, Joseph Sikora, and the rest of the cast. Things are always coming at us from every single direction, just like it will for Tommy in this last and final season. A bit more on that later on. But as you guys know, when it gets a bit chaotic, it's time to take a step back, let a few of the teasers and interviews roll, and then we'll unpack it all in one breakdown. And that's the agenda for this one. There's an exclusive episode 1 scene between D-Mac and Diamond. There is also a new teaser that has been floating around on social media, with a few new scenes that we haven't seen yet, and that's chapter 2. And lastly, chapter 3. That's going to be a section from a video which I actually recorded a couple of days ago. I decided to chop the first section out, which was on Claudia Flynn for obvious reasons, but you guys all know my views on Claudia Flynn. But I have broken down the interviews from Joseph Sikora, Isaac Keys, Shane Harper, Gary Lennon, and also the rest, and that's chapter 3. So without further ado, let's get into this episode 1 exclusive between D-Mac and Diamond.
What's up, man? Talk to Kilo yet? Smooth that shit out or what?
Nah, man, it's gonna take a minute. Just be patient. Good?
Now look, patience is the one thing I don't have.
So over here we've got D-Mac approaching Diamond and asking him whether he's smoothed things over with King Kilo. That's because at the end of season 2, D-Mac went and killed his nephew, Mad Dog. Soon after, Janard went over to see King Kilo to smooth things over, and as a peace deal, he offered to personally hand deliver D-Mac. Now on King Kilo, I'm not sure what they plan to do with his character, whether we'll see him, whether Glenn Davis was able to film his scenes before he went inside. That's still up in the air at this moment in time. Before all that happened, I do think they plan to have him play a role in season 3, because King Kilo did mention at the back end of season 2 he was going to be released soon. I do assume that would have been a part of season 3's storyline, and it still might be because of episode 4's title and description. But that's one which we're probably just going to have to wait and see, or whether they've had to kind of change the original plan. From my perspective, I think it's a story that may linger for the first half of the season, based on the synopsis for episode 4 with Tommy trying to find a way to protect D-Mac. In this conversation, Diamond also mentioned that he hasn't had a chance to speak to King Kilo yet. It's going to take a minute, and that's because Mad Dog was his nephew. The only way King Kilo will see it is it has to be an eye for an eye. That's something Diamond wasn't against at the back end of season 2, but if Tommy is his partner and D-Mac is his nephew, Diamond and Janard are going to have a real problem, because they can't just hand over D-Mac to King Kilo. They're definitely going to have to try and find another way. So I do think it's something that may linger for a few episodes. It may also be a storyline that kind of causes a bit more tension between Diamond, Tommy and Janard, but by episode 4, based on the description, it does seem like that storyline will kind of blow over. But moving on to the second part of their conversation.
I need you to put me to work. I need a plug. I moved out. I'm on my own.
Well, shit, you talked to your Uncle Tommy?
I haven't seen him yet, but
beat.
I'm tired of waiting around this motherfucker, man.
If your ass don't listen to me, you gonna end up in jail for killing a cop. Or you gonna catch a bullet for killing Mad Dog. So sit your little ass down.
Now, just like Tariq, D-Mac is a very impatient kid. He wants to get back in with the CBI, he wants back in the game, and he hasn't even spoken to Tommy yet. At this point when we see this scene, we probably haven't seen Tommy and D-Mac interact just yet at the beginning of season 3. He mentioned that he moved out and he lives on his own, and again, that's something we did see towards the back end of season 2 in episode 10. He got into the big argument with JP and also Kate. But this persistence of him wanting to get back into the game and wanting Diamond to put him on, Diamond and Tommy are going to have to really sort this issue out, because if they don't, all D-Mac is going to do is he's going to make more mistakes for them to clean up. I don't think either of them have a choice at this moment in time. Diamond mentioned that Tommy's dealing with other things, which is probably the Maria situation, but this is something that is going to have to be dealt with very quick. If they don't bring D-Mac in, he's just going to cause more issues for them by doing something on his own. Eventually, I do think Tommy will realize that, because he will bring him in. Hopefully he doesn't cause more damage or mess in the meantime, which I do think is hopeful thinking. I personally think it probably will take another stupid moment for D-Mac or another messy situation for them to then realize, shit, the best option probably is to bring him in. At least that way you can kind of keep some sort of control over him. just like Tasha tried to do with Tariq. But that's the exclusive clip from Diamond and D-Mac. Let's move on to another new teaser that's been floating around on social media.
This is it. Are you ready for this?
So a few more scenes here that we haven't seen before. We've got Miguel Garcia with a shotgun in hand. I'm not sure whether at this point he's working alongside Tommy. We know that's going to happen eventually, but there is going to be a lot of action. We've got Marshall being punched in the stomach, and he's also another character that's going to be involved a lot more as well, alongside D-Mac. We are going to see more of that brotherhood. We're going to see them on missions together. I just want to know what happens between them when we eventually see that split within the CBI, when Tommy goes his own way. Where does it leave D-Mac and Marshall's relationship? We've got Tommy also putting a gun to Vic, which is a scene I've shown you guys before. But for those who may not remember, or for those who may not have seen my previous breakdown, this is the one that probably matches up.
Tommy, I've done everything you asked. Not everything.
It then finishes off with the words revenge, money, family, death, betrayal, love, and then power, which I think sums up this last season as a whole and also power in general. Every single season, whether you're talking Power Book 2 Ghost, Raising Kanan, Force, you're talking revenge, death, betrayal, love. There are constant themes across the power shows, but more so in this final season of Force. They have put a real emphasis on each of those elements because they are going to be all important at different stages of the season. But that's another small teaser that's been floating around on social media. Let's move on to the interview section. And again, this was recorded a couple of days ago where I have cut out the section about Claudia Flynn. Now, in terms of the character Tommy, Joseph Sikora mentioned that this is the same character that walked up to the Taínos back in Power. But what Gary Lennon has done in this third season is pull Tommy in a million different directions. Whether it's his mom constantly being in his ear, questioning whether he's doing the right thing, to Maria, him and Diamond having different views on how to do things. And then there's his dislike for Jannard. Law enforcement are still going to be on his case through Stacey Marks and Bobby DeFranco. And then there's Vic Flynn in the background. Mixed in that situation as well, he's also going to be having a fight with his sister. There's also then Shanti Showstopper Page, who's also playing her own game. So he's a character who's going to be pulled in a million different directions in this final season. But by the middle of the season, a man can only take so much. In the middle of season 3, some lines are going to have to snap. And then it's going to be all systems go. And I do agree with a lot of the points that Joseph Sikora has mentioned. Tommy's going to be pulled in all sorts of directions, just like we saw Ghost being pulled in all sorts of directions back in Power. You go back to Ghost's situation in Power and he was a character who had Tasha telling him he was the biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York. But then on the other side there was Angela who represented what Ghost really wanted. There was also Tommy who wanted to build more on their organization, constant pressure from Felipe Lobos, all while Kanan was behind the hits to their organization back in season 1. But then he also had issues with his club business and battles with Simon Stern. So you saw how Ghost had to constantly deal with moving chess pieces and million and one different problems and being pulled in all sorts of different directions. Now we're going to see Tommy being pulled in all sorts of directions in season 3 of Force, and we're going to see how he's going to be able to cope or how he doesn't cope. Back in Power there was a moment where he did snap, but in terms of what he said with him snapping by the mid-season mark, I think we all know what that will be. I do think it's going to be JP's death, and Joseph Sikora did mention then it's all systems go. All hell will definitely break loose. So great insight from Joseph Sikora on season 3. But moving on to Diamond Samson. Now in the same interview, Isaac Key spoke a bit more about his relationship with Tommy. We've already had the viewpoint from Gary Lennon and also Joseph Sikora, but Isaac Keys mentioned that Diamond is in a place where he does actually want this partnership to work. He's in a place where Tommy is his partner and he does want it to be successful. But at the end of the day, he is still considered an outsider, which if you guys remember, I did just mention that in my last breakdown. Tommy comes from New York where he's done things in a certain different way, whereas Diamond is Chicago born and bred. He also spoke about him having a lot of issues where Diamond is going to be questioning a lot of Tommy's moves. Now is that questioning him in the sense Diamond is learning from him, or is it questioning in the sense he's going to be questioning whether it's the right move, whether it's the move that he'd be making, whether he's questioning Tommy's move? I'd probably lean towards the second, and that's probably what will cause a lot of issues and tension between them. As well as Shanti being in Tommy's ear and as well as Jannard being in Diamond's ear, that will definitely contribute towards an eventual split. I do think Diamond is going to be in a very tough spot in season 3 and caught between Jannard and Tommy, who, let's not get it twisted, did help him get CBI back on the map. But come the end, I do think they're going to be gearing up for Diamond versus Tommy at some point because something will definitely have to give. Now, something else I noticed and heard that he mentioned in the interview was the term pregnancies when it came to Tommy dealing with all of his issues. And this is something we've constantly mentioned over the past 2 years. I do think this is going to be the scene where Maria tells Tommy that she's pregnant. So let's see how that kind of changes the dynamic between Tommy and Diamond's partnership. But moving on to Gary Lennon speaking about Tariq St. Patrick. Now, Gary Lennon was asked about Tariq crossing over to Chicago because everybody's been speculating that Tariq could be showing up on Force, and this was Gary Lennon's response. Everybody that's involved in the show love our fans and their speculation about what will and what will not happen. I can't tip my hat to anything that will or may not happen, but I am a fan of Michael Rainey, and power never dies. He also mentioned there are conversations ongoing with Power Legacy, which hasn't actually been confirmed as the name, but that's what was written on the original Deadline article. That's what we're going with until we're told otherwise, but that's still in the writer's room at this moment in time. And I personally think maybe in the next month, I wouldn't be surprised if we got some news and confirmation. Because what that also does is, it just hints to Tariq potentially popping up on Force, and then it just builds up hype and anticipation for the final 5 episodes of Force Season 3. Where's Tariq? When is Tariq gonna pop up and why? Why would Tariq cross over to Chicago? Did Tommy call him, and is that who he was on the phone to at the end of Power Book 2 Ghost in the after-end credit scene? Why would Tommy have no choice but to call Tariq? So in my opinion, if they announce it maybe in December, it's the perfect time because it builds hype, it builds anticipation. We then look forward to Tariq popping up in Chicago, and then Tommy and Tariq continuing their journey in Power Legacy. Now elsewhere, they did also have characters like Vic Flynn, Stacey Marks, Miguel, Maria Garcia doing their interviews. Now on Vic, Shane Harper did mention that the one thing that motivates him this season is love. He is a bit of a romantic. That's one thing that will keep him going this season because he does have a new love interest who goes by the name Ray. That's something that he's going to be fighting for, just like he did with Gloria in season 1. I did recently rewatch season 2 and it did kind of look like he was just hopeless. He lacked direction, he didn't know what to do with his life, and that probably mainly stemmed from the fact that he lost Gloria in the way he did. But in season 3, now that he's got Ray, it's a different story. With Stacey Marks and Bobby DeFranco, they're going to be having a lot of problems. It has been said that Stacey Marks' ambition in terms of her career may get in between them, and in my opinion, the question is just how far is Stacey Marks really willing to go to get what she wants, even if it comes at the cost of her relationship with Bobby DeFranco. Now for the Garcias, we know the usual, but the one thing that they dropped which I did think was worth mentioning was a potential family dinner. And we all know what goes down during a family dinner scene in the world of Power. We've seen a few in Book 2 Ghost, a different kind of family dinner scene in Raising Kanan, which was quite a lot more realistic to be honest. The revelation of Grandma Joyce's Thomas's condition. But what would a Garcia family dinner look like, especially if Maria is pregnant? Just worth a thought and just something to definitely keep in mind, a final explosive Force dinner scene may be on the cards. Now with that being said, that's the latest in the world of Force. There are a few more teasers, trailers and interviews floating around, but in the lead up to episode 1, there's always going to be a lot of them. I will go through everything in the preview for episode 1, at least the most important points, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for that on Thursday. But drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.